Caitlin Moran had an opinion piece in the Sunday Times that did little more than parade her own misunderstanding of the zeitgeist and of online culture. So much so that I can't help but wonder if she wasn't the Moran being referenced in the infamous Get a Brain Morans protest poster. It's ostensibly about how the online mood shifts and changes, and about how people's flirtation with the quote alt-right is now coming back to haunt them, but, as I said, it does more to expose her own bias and misunderstanding. Quote, "There have always, of course, been sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, privilege and homophobia, that odd, illogical rage the more powerful direct against the less powerful, the feverish spite that someone with, say, 5 problems directs at someone with 12 problems, or 13, now the bigot has spoken so loudly." End quote. At least there's an admission that other people have problems, and there has, of course, always been sexism, racism, and so on. Not privilege in the sense she's using it, but still this is a useful confession on her part. There have always been these things, but the accusations of them have gotten completely out of hand, applied to people who don't meet those definitions. Criticism of religion is rebranded as racist. Quoting statistics, even without interpretation, is rebranded as sexist or racist. The slightest misstep to any degree from a rather hard-line, extreme agenda, the slightest moment of pause, consideration, caution, or even assertion of important liberal values, such as the value of due process of law, any of these is enough to get you excommunicated from the pseudo-left. The assumption of the power dynamic here is also wrong. The traditional targets of left and liberal ire may have some measure of political power at the moment, but socially they are virtually powerless, and we on the left are abusing the power we have over them, while still considering ourselves to be the victims. Quote, "There will always be, as my friend used to say, people who think their hatreds are important and need to be spoken and acted upon, rather than just considered as another random fact about themselves, as ultimately insignificant as them telling you about a weird dream they had. These people going on and on about their unpleasant, dull thoughts never pipe down or go away." End quote. See, she doesn't understand here that she's talking about herself and people like her, that their constant outpouring of hatred, that their hypocrisy, has quite naturally and understandably created a counterculture and protest in opposition to them. Not only from the right-wing, traditionalist, cis-het white males they feel safe being sexist, racist and bigoted towards, but from those who actually took their own liberal and left-wing values seriously, those who believed in free speech genuinely and wholeheartedly, who subscribed to Evelyn Beatrice Hall's characterization of Voltaire, who stood against all forms of racism and bigotry and now see that the whip has merely changed hands rather than being eliminated. Quote, "But over the past 3 years or so, a high tide, every medium has a mood, a tone, and the tone of social media has most assuredly been set by the anger of bigots. Twitter was the first public place in my lifetime where you could find people being openly, virulently hate-stirring, using the lexicon of feminazis, libtards, cucks, final solutions, send them all back, snowflakes, and the PC brigade." End quote. Again, she doesn't understand that the anger of bigots she should be referring to is her own, that of the regressive left, the PC brigade. Feminazi, libtard, cuck, these are stupid terms often used by stupid people, but often also used satirically or playfully as well. Even so, they're nowhere near as powerful, still, and have nowhere near the social cachet of racist, sexist, bigot, misogynist, terms tossed around with gay abandon by an equally obnoxious crew that has been abusing that social power for years. Libtard carries no weight or consequences. Misogynist does, in a world where a single tweet can destroy someone's career without the need for evidence, context, relevance, a case being made in a court of law. or any relation to anything else in their life, or to the work that they could lose, the family that they could lose. It could be a private comment in a group that's supposed to be secure, and yet one person finds it, relays it, and it's over for them. Quote, "And it was not just the usual marginalised bores, for there has been in the past few years a hot fashion for these words and ideas. It has been as much a giddy trend as beards or yo-yos. People who until recently had always presented as supporters of reasoning language and at home with equality suddenly started flirting with this privilege rage. White, usually male, usually middle class, usually straight columnists, broadcasters and cabinet ministers, encouraged by the back-of-the-bike sheds vibe of social media, started wielding these phrases with a barely concealed combination of excitement and fear." End quote. Should that not give one pause? That intelligent, egalitarian-minded people, the ones under attack even before they so much as raised their voices, began to protest? That the people who supported the fight for equality and fairness noticed that something was unfair? She says they're shitting on the notions of equality and protest, and some are, but many are not. They're taking stock of the fact that what people are fighting for now is not equality, that the protests are incoherent or asking to dismantle the cornerstones of our liberal democracies, that they are hypocritical and a problem. Did this atmosphere help Trump and Brexit? Certainly. But who is ultimately to blame for this? The ones fueling the overreach of so-called social justice, or the ones reacting to it? The authoritarian, censorious social powers wielding the online tweet mobs, or those saying, hang on, just a minute, this all seems a bit dangerous? Sure, you've got your Hopkins, your Yiannopoulos, your Youngs. Trump isn't doing so well in the popularity stakes, and Farage is on the out. Brexit is a shambles. But these were people exploiting and using a mood that reaches far beyond the opportunistic right that they represent. And the reason that these messages have resonated hasn't gone away. This article is just more fuel for the fire. It's going to create even more of a backlash out of its cack-handed and frankly stupid misunderstanding of what is going on. Being a massive cunt on the internet doesn't necessarily pay the rent in the real world, as she puts it, but for some people it does. She's still doing very well off it. Being a massive cunt on the internet works out great, provided you punch down while people think you're punching up. This whole article of hers fails to understand the situation, and all it does is fuel further reaction, provide more hypocrisy, more unkind bigotry and triumphalism that continues to come from the very sort of people who should know better and don't understand that they've won. For now. Postmortem Studios sells a wide variety of stock art, well over 500 pieces, many of them by RPG industry veteran Brad McDevitt. These are available for you to use in your personal or professional projects, whether stories or games or anything else. Check us out at rpgnow.com.